Good morning, and thanks, Chris, for the introduction. I've been told the last 2 days that I brought the sun with me from Dubai, but you haven't seen the sun yet. It's 45 degrees over there, but in the next 1 month, actually, it's going to change a bit, and we'll go to the cool season. Just to give you what we do, so I'm actually based in Dubai, as part of the Victorian government trade and investment team, and we work under Global Victoria. Global Victoria has 22 offices worldwide, and one of the core offices is Dubai. Now, under our portfolio, we have 79 countries with limited resources, but actually out of the 79, we cover maybe 15 of them, and we work closely with the Nontrade, DFAT, MLA, and other associations to promote Victorian products across the sectors. So I cover trade across sectors, but food and agriculture products is one of the priority sector for us. Today I'll outline it's about the Middle East, brief on the Middle East, and beyond that is the North Africa, and I'll give a definition of the Middle East, and because a lot of people consider it's one region but not one country. And also to outline the opportunity to trans and how to prepare yourself before you enter the market. Now, we'll try to summarize it. It's not easy to summarize that, but I'll do my best. Now, just before I start, can I ask if there's any traders here from Australia, and how many of you have done business or doing business in that part of the world? 1, 2. Okay, I think the rest are doing business outside, business matching outside. That's good. The region traditionally is very rich in history and culture, and if you need to understand this one before you go to that part of the world. Historically, the region was and still and remain the link between Asia and Europe and Africa and Central Asia, and it's also a logistic hub. So go back to many years. After the rise of Islam, Arab traders started to dominate the maritime route to shifting goods between countries, and especially that time was the logistic hub was Levant, working with the Venetian merchants to export the products from India to Europe, until the rise of the Ottoman Empire. Another fact about that region has played a role in transforming the food habit and to many countries. I'll give an example. In the 15th century, there was an Arabic guy called Ahmed bin Majid. He was a sailor and navigator. Actually, well, it's hard to say where he's originally from, but from Oman or Zanzibar, from that part. He helped the Portuguese, and that time was Vasco da Gama, who got lost in the Indian Ocean to reach India from Africa. And since that time, Europe has got more products from India, from Asia, especially spices. So that part of the world has played a role in transforming the food between the regions. Now, as I said, the Middle East is not one country. So when we say ME is Middle East, if I say MENA means Middle East and North Africa, because that's the region we cover. Now, when we work with Nontrade, for them, definition of MENA, including Pakistan, so it depends to whom you are talking to. And part of that MENA, you have the Gulf region, which is the sixth rich country in oil and gas. The Middle East, with a fast-growing population, has 60% of this population below 25 years old, making this is one of the most youthful population in the world, with a median age of 22 years, comparing to 28 globally. So when you trying to do business, you need to see the segment of your customers. So it's a vast potential market for food and beverages. In some countries, it's about 70% of population below 25, 24. So if we talk about Iran, for example, 70% are below 25 years old. Go to about Egypt, same. That's the understanding demographic is very important. So if we want to break down the region, so you have the Middle East and North Africa. If we break down, it would be Gulf region. It's the Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and Oman, and UAE. North Africa, we talk about Egypt, Libya, Algeria, and Morocco. And then we'll add the Levant. So in the Arab world, you have Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and then you have Turkey and Iran. So this is totally different markets in terms of culture, demographic, languages. And also each one has its own business culture. So you have, when you go towards Morocco, it's more French-oriented. And they have FTA agreement, for example, with Europe, where, Turkey, they produce more products than they import themselves. They import a lot of ingredients. So it's understand the region is very important before you do business. In terms of wealth, the region is one of the richest region in the world. Why is that? According to the latest estimates, 70% of the proven preserved oil in the world is located in that part of the world. So we talk Saudi number 2 in the world, Iran number 4, and Iraq number 5. 46% of the world's proven natural gas reserve is located in this region, with the top producers are Iran, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Algeria, Iraq, and Egypt, and definitely other countries they have as well, but those are the largest one. In addition to that, those countries are rich in minerals and mining. So there is potential to grow their countries. It's potential to grow their to infrastructure, and that would be a potential market. Talk about the Gulf region, which is the main economic zone in the Middle East, with a population of 56 million. 7 of the world's top 15 sovereign wealth funds are located in the Gulf, with a combined assets of $2.5 trillion US dollars. 2 of the G20 countries are located in the Middle East. We talk about Turkey and Saudi Arabia, with an estimate GDP of $780 billion US. So the economic growth of this region currently has a modest growth between 1.5 and 3%. It depends which country we're talking to, between now and the next 2 years. The region has played, as we mentioned earlier, as a hub and logistic to move goods. But currently, Dubai is playing that role as a city. For the last 15 years, Dubai has set up itself as a hub for the region. A lot of people don't know that Dubai, for example, is the largest humanitarian hub in the world, moving $32 billion of goods, humanitarian goods, to the whole world. If you are in Dubai, you can reach 2/3 of the population in the world within 8 hours, because it's maybe the most airlines that connect you to the most cities and countries. Talk about the region as a hub. Dubai has the 9th largest container port in the world, plays 24% of the Dubai GDP. So understanding logistics also is very important, because it's not a destination, it's the final destination of your goods. So a lot of goods are imported to Dubai and re-exported to Africa, Central Asia, by air, by sea freight, or by land. I'll give an example. 50% of the food imported to Dubai goes to Saudi and Iran. Where is the population? In terms also the leading emerging market player in logistics, Dubai is 3rd after China and India. So the region is very important role for many countries, and I believe Australia has more potential to export food and beverages. In terms of aviation, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE dominate 85% of the regional airlines fleet size. And I'll come back to this point. That's a very important point for many companies that are looking to export to a niche market, to a niche segment in the food and beverages. Airlines nowadays play a significant role in moving goods, including food and beverages. I'll give an example. Emirates and Etihad Airways, which is located in UAE, Emirates in Dubai, and Etihad Airways in Abu Dhabi, combined has moved 76 million passengers a year. Oh, this is last year, actually. While its logistics subsidiary of Emirates moved 1,100 tons of food worldwide per day. So Melbourne, for example, has 3 days flight to Dubai. Etihad two flights a day, and Qatar once daily. And you have the passengers, and the bottom of the belly of the aircraft is full of food, including lamb, vegetables, fruits, and other perishable products. So Logistics nowadays play a big role to me because you might have the best product and you have the buyers, but if you don't have the connectivity, there's no point to sell. And that's why we are seeing a lot of goods go to Dubai and then transported into Africa. Try to export food to any country in Africa, it's a challenge. Logistically, corruption, handling at the port, maybe they don't have the cold stores at the port, at the seaport. But if you transport it by air freight, you might find it will reach the region much easier and less challenge and headache. Any region, any country in the world has its own challenge. There's no country it's open. Even Australia, if you want to import products here, it's not easy to import products. So because every time we go to any session, talk about export, companies asking, oh, there is challenges as distance, is culture, business culture, the languages. That's across the globe. So it's not something that's only the Middle East that has this challenge. But I'm going to highlight those few points that you might face in the Middle East where maybe more or less it's more related to that market. So although the region and usually in the media, unfortunately, talk more about bad news, maybe it's good for the news channels, but actually if you go and visit the market, there's a lot of potential across all the sectors, including F&B. So the market is still, continues to provide an important market for this sector, not only F&B but also the agri-tech. The other challenge that we are facing, and the market is changing all the time. So if I've been based in Dubai for 17 years, 13 years with the Global Victoria. 10 years back, we didn't have products from Eastern Europe, like Romania, Hungary, and Slovakia, Slovenia, Ukraine. Nowadays, we are seeing those markets are open for trade and export, and we are seeing products coming from there. So, for example, if we talk about grains, Ukraine is now number one in the world now in exporting grains. Russia number two. And why? They have the cheap land, cheap skilled laborers, plenty of water, proximity of distance, and also the lack of supply from this part of the world. If you give me grains, I'm happy to export it. If you give me dairy products, I'm happy to help you to export it. Give me lamb and mutton. Give me beef. But unfortunately, we have a lack of supply in Australia. Talk about the other markets in Eastern Europe. We're seeing organic products coming from Hungary, from Romania. We're seeing snacks, confectionery. So it's not only Australia and Europe and the US now the major exporter. We're seeing those countries are now or under license, and they're doing not bad quality. But I'm saying this so Australian companies to identify the niche where they want to sell and what to sell. The other challenge is those countries in the Middle East are relying on oil and gas, and oil prices now is down. So that will affect the growth in their sustaining their economy, to grow their projects, infrastructure. But on a mid and long term, this region is potential for you. Geopolitical factors can lead to high risk of supply disruption, and that's correct. And we're seeing now the China-US trade war. We're seeing the geopolitical also issues in the Middle East. For example, last 2 years between Qatar and UAE and Saudi Arabia, they don't talk to each other, and that has disrupted the supply chain. And also disrupted that if you visited Dubai, where Qatar is 45 minutes away from Dubai by air, now it takes 9 hours. So I visited the last 12 months Qatar, it took me 9 hours because I have to go to Kuwait or Oman, change flights, and then by the time I left the office to reach the hotel was 9 hours. So that's the kind of risk that might affect you doing business there. But there's things that change all the time. The region is not stable in terms of this is the way it's done for business. It keeps changing. And not only the geopolitical, demographic is changing. The movement of people is changing. If we talk about United Arab Emirates, 9 million population, 6 million of them are from Indian subcontinent. So it's not a region that, and those people are changing all the time. So understanding demographic of each country it's very important to prepare yourself or what products you want to sell and to whom you are selling these products. And don't forget India is next door. So I've seen companies coming from Melbourne want to sell spices to Dubai, where India is only 2 hours flight from Dubai, which is hard to compete with it. The other challenge that we are facing is the non-tariff barriers. Unfortunately, is an increase. But I can say that Australia, DFAT, Department of Agriculture, state government, association like MLA and Dairy Australia are doing their best to minimize those risks and minimize those barriers. And they keep changing for many reasons. Now, because the country doesn't have one standard, and sometimes they follow the European standards or the Australian standards, so it's easy to bring in products, but trying to minimize the countries that supply where they don't understand the quality of this product, the supply chain of those food. Recently, we have seen, I'll give an example in the dairy products, especially if it's flavored dairy. United Arab Emirates has started implementing what they call Emirates Quality Management System, where each company that wants to export flavored dairy, they need to have that logo on their stickers. The amount of money that you have to pay is around 10,000 Australian dollars per category or per brand for 2 years. Now, this is a challenge for many of our SMEs. Maybe the $10,000 for 2 years is not a big amount. That's what they say, because this is $10,000, not a big amount. But we're seeing this one is going to be a challenge to change the labor for each country. And we are also concerned that what if Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar will implement their own logo? And then it's going to be, the region is big as a region, but when you break it down, it's a small market and each one has its own regulation. So currently, DFAT is and Department of Agriculture are heavily talking to the regulator about it. Not only us, even the Europeans and the US, and hopefully we'll be able to change their mind. However, they are not enforcing these rules at the moment, but it can come at any time. And we're going to see a disruption of supplying our dairy products because we have a lot of dairy companies supplying in small quantities to Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait. Now, they have implemented the same one for water, because I met a couple of water companies here. It's one of the most challengeable products to bring it in, not because there's no market, there's a huge market. You know, you talk about 6 months of warm weather and 6 months of hot weather, between 30 and 50 degrees. So consuming water and juices is essential. The challenge for us is because our companies are SMEs, they cannot compete with the big companies like Nestle, Coca-Cola. For them to pay a couple of 100 grants and $1 million is not a big issue, and they are dominating the market in general. But the challenge would be for these small and medium-sized companies, and it can go up to, for the water, can go up to $40,000-$50,000 minimum as a charge for that MS quality management logo. Despite the efforts of increasing domestic agriculture and livestock production, the region remains heavily on imports. If we talk about Gulf region, 90% of the food is imported. I believe it's 100%, because 90% is almost ready-to-eat food or retail or special cut meat, and the 10% is mainly ingredients, and they will process it inland. The same now, and also we are seeing a lot of changes in other markets like Levant, like Iran. Iran, for example, there used to be sufficient in lamb. Now they have a big shortage of lamb, big shortage of beef. And this is an essential protein for all the region. So the whole region on a mid and long term and even short term are heavily independent on the imports. The MENA region sector is forecasted to increase 3% from now to 2023 and to reach $171 billion as a food bill. What Australia is exporting is only $3 billion. So there's a huge room to have a market share. Out of this $3 million, $1 billion are exported from Victoria. And out of $3 billion, $1.7 billion goes to the Gulf region. Unfortunately, we used to be $4 billion. But as I said, we don't have enough to supply lamb, mutton. We don't have enough supply of dairy products. We don't have enough supply of grains, pulses, and that's a challenge actually. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iran, and Egypt remain the top countries in MENA region for importing food and bev. Why? Because they have the largest population. You talk about Egypt, about 100 million. You talk about Iran and Turkey, about 80 each. And you talk about Saudi, about 38. Egypt, its population is increasing by 2.5 million new babies every year. They have 1 million graduate students every year looking for jobs. That's a challenge. That's another challenge, that unemployment is very high. Halal lamb and beef, followed by beef, will remain an important protein source for the entire region. Both categories will continue to grow. And from the food security point, which is very important for the region, as we said, that they have a lack of water, have less land for agriculture, and also the shortage of skilled laborers. So from the food security point, the governments are now focusing to set up their own agriculture, livestock, but that's not enough. So alternative protein for the region for food security is very crucial. If we talk about Saudi, for example, they import 1 million tons of chicken per year, and they produce themselves 600 to 800. That's as an alternative cheap protein than beef and lamb. It comes from Brazil. Also, they are setting up their aqua farms. So agriculture companies from Australia has potential to do business there to help them to grow their protein sector. I know that the last 2 days there's a lot of topic, and this is really a hot topic across the globe about alternative protein, but that market is still traditional. Sending them a food that smells and tastes like meat, but it's not meat, that's not, no. No, doesn't work. It's still very traditional and family-oriented region. Look, that's the good positive about this region is very similar to Australia. You know, most of the businesses are family-owned. Even the corporates, the top corporate companies still in the Middle East are owned by family. So I really find a lot of common sense of doing business, and Australians are always welcome to do business there. They're always on the top of the list across sectors, including F&B, in having their products. Now, where is the challenge and how to enter the market? I'll come to this point later on. Where are the growth opportunities in the F&B sector? Disposable higher income among the rapidly expanding educated middle class is driving now the demand of high-quality products. As we said, it's a very young population. A lot of them, especially in the Gulf region, have the chance now to travel, and they're seeing more products overseas, and they want these products back home. Social media nowadays is playing a big driver for sourcing new products. And that's where I believe that Australia can have more potential. So halal meat and poultry will remain an important market for Australian companies. MENA region health and wellness food and packaged products will have the highest global growth rate, and it's about 10% to 20%. So we are expecting to have growth in this sector, where the sub-Saharan is about 9% growth. So if you are in this segment, it's worth looking into the region. The appetite for organic foods is growing in the UAE and Qatar, and other countries as well, but this is the main countries I would recommend to look at it. And why is that? Diabetes and cardiovascular disease and obesity are very high in certain countries, especially in the Gulf region. In certain countries, I don't want to mention them, but in certain countries could be about 70 to 90% of people are obese. And the diabetes is about 20%, officially 25%, but actually if you remove the expats from that segment, would be about 40% of the population. Now, why is that? Unfortunately, the environment and the hot weather plays a big role. Lack of exercise. People spend their time at home, spend most of the time in the shopping mall, lack of activities outdoor, and also the relatively cheap labors. You can sit 24 hours, restaurants work 24 hours, supply. You can call the supermarket, they can bring you a can of Coca-Cola at a free delivery. And that's why it's people that like exercise. The other category that we're going to see a growth, and we met a couple of retailers recently. They're looking for dairy and alternative dairy products, almond milk, soy milk, especially for dairy allergic people. And we have seen a lot of categories and brands coming out now into Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Oman, Jordan, and also Lebanon. Nuts and small snacks and packs are in demand there. Find your niche market. This is where I would suggest because competing to Europeans and US on a bulk and the normal food products is really a challenge from a price point. I would recommend to look at this segment and see if your products can fit it. We mentioned earlier that Aviation Hub, the region has set up its Aviation Hub. We talk about Emirates Airlines, Etihad Airways, we talk about Qatar Airways, and now Turkey, they have one of the largest airports in the world which can accommodate 120 million people per year. So if you have products for lounges, for airports, for the airlines, whether business class, first class, we're seeing less Australian products on the economy, but if you can target that category of airlines, and all these airlines, they have a procurement platform online. You can register your company, your products, and you can chat with them. Now, also, we can help you if you are from Victoria, if you are from other states, Australia, and each state actually has an office in Dubai, can help you to access the market. The Gulf region current internet penetration rate is about 67%, well above the global average of 51%. Social media, as we mentioned, playing a big role nowadays. 96% of the UAE population are on social media. Instagram, Facebook, and other whatever is Snapchat. That's really can help you to promote your products. Not only to be because promoting your products at the store level, it kind of come at a cost. The retailers is charging a lot of money on that one. Use the social media. UAE is leading the e-commerce in the region and estimated to grow about to $17.8 billion by 2020. The online grocery shopping is emerging now in the Gulf region. Unfortunately, in the rest of the MENA, it's not happening now due to the logistics challenges. The infrastructure is not there. A lot of countries, they don't have proper Wi-Fi, proper logistic, even addresses. So even Dubai and UAE and Saudi, with all this advanced and more modern cities, still we don't have a proper address. So we say where you live, before, after, behind. That's how it works. So if you have a product can fit into the e-commerce, I would recommend to come to the UAE. There's two big platforms. One called souk.com, which is now owned by Amazon. And the second one is noon.com, which is owned by UAE public company. And recently also, there's many others, but this is the two big platforms, including there's a couple of them in Saudi Arabia. So we spoke about it. Now, I have mentioned four big events upcoming, and one is on yearly basis, where I would like to look at it and maybe come with products that can be served during those events. The Formula One, Abu Dhabi has one, and Bahrain. So there's a couple of companies. They're not located in the Middle East, but one in Turkey, actually. They supply most of the Formula One with the food, except Melbourne, I think Singapore and Brazil. It's actually Austrian-Turkish company. So sometimes you don't need to go directly to the destination to sell your products, but find a way through Turkey, through Europe, a lot of suppliers, and maybe you can talk to those companies about supplying. Qatar is hosting the World Cup soccer in 2022. And of course, Qatar, as we said, is relying on importing products. So if you can come with the packaging, a new packaging with the new snacks, food waste is huge in that part of the world, unfortunately. So look at this one. Dubai is hosting Dubai Expo in 2020. The event is going to be for 6 months, from October 21st of 2020, which is within 1 year actually, and through the April 2021. They are expecting to host 25 million people. 70% of them will be internationally. A lot of the people are expected to come from India, from Africa, from Central Asia, and the rest of the world. How to communicate with Dubai Expo? There's two ways. One is Dubai Expo itself has a platform called One Marketplace Expo 2020. If you Google it, you'll find it. Register your company, your products, and you can, in that platform, sorry, I'm not registered there because I'm not a products provider, and could be anything from food to non-food. Could be packaging. Could be technology to save the time and waste food waste. So you register your company, your products, and you can find out the contracts and the process of this one. The second one is Australian government is also having its Australian pavilion. Also, they have their own website. If you want to supply products or showcasing your products at the expo, it's worthwhile to talk to them or to talk to my colleague here, Claire Cooney here, and she's from DFAB based in Canberra, and she's part of the Expo 2020 project. The other one is, which the Hajj pilgrims, which always happening in Saudi Arabia every year. They host 2.5 million Hajj pilgrims coming from around the world. Maybe we have to look at this one. 2.5 million coming for 1 week. Of course, again, we mentioned of food waste. We mentioned of what we can offer, new packaging for the Hajj pilgrims, supplying them kind of water. We're happy to share these ideas, and maybe we can work with the federal government how to communicate with the relevant authority. What would be your market strategy to enter the market? Identify whether a true opportunity, and this requires understanding the competition and market drivers and demographic. I mentioned earlier, demographic is very important to understand to be able to sell your products. In addition to that, the Middle East is a price-sensitive market. Not because traditionally they like to bargain. That's the nature of the region. But also because we are competing with the whole world. We are very located in the center of the world, and we are competing with US, with Europeans, with India, with China, with Southeast Asia. So the single most important step for any company wanting to do business in the Middle East is to visit the region and follow up with further visits to show you are serious to do business. If you are considering that you're going to travel for once a year and one time to do business, I'm sorry to say, you're wasting your time and your money. Be prepared. You need to at least travel 4 times, at least for the first and second year. And then you can follow up with this guy by emails, by phone, and keep visiting the market. Conducting business in the Middle East is very different than the West. Patience is highly needed. And awareness of culture business difference is also to be considered. Again, we're not targeting one nationality. The Middle East is not one nationality, it's not one ethnicity, it's not one religion. Yeah, each country has a different demographic. Things take time. Opportunities may appear to go away, then suddenly reappear with urgency. You might go meet them, they say, no, we're not interested, and suddenly they call you back, say, please send me your goods, and because they have maybe supply chain disruption, or maybe they found it out now because demographic is changing, and now they want your products. So keep in communication with these potential buyers. Relationships are a key factor to do business. Trust. As I mentioned, the region is very traditional in a way of doing business, very from the business culture is very traditional. So building relationship, you might for many companies or many people, they think that this is a waste of time. No, actually it's not. Go communicate with people, then you find out sitting 1 hour talking to them, 45 minutes you just talk about the world, about food, about cars, their love of cars, watches, stuff like this, and then 5 minutes talk about your products. Come back, and we will help you, and I'm sure you will get your products there. You need to budget for regional visits. Visiting Dubai is good. To start in Dubai, that's good. But once you settle, once your product's there, that's not the end. Saudi Arabia is the next door with a big population. You have Kuwait, you have Egypt, you have Iran, you have Turkey. So that's how is where your big market. Ensure you remain in regular contact. Again, face-to-face is very important. Phones, emails, at the first step doesn't work. I have seen many companies coming to me saying, look, can you please forward this email or this product or this catalog to your potential clients, and I'll take it from there. I'm more than happy to flip the email, and it's 2 clicks from me and I'll do it. But I'm sure that you'll not get any answers. Visiting the market, plan it properly, and meet those people face to face, understand what's the requirement and why they're buying products. Sometimes they just want to take your price and show it to your competitor, whether in Australia or New Zealand or Europe. Sometimes they just want to, check what's the whatever. I mean, maybe it's something no reason. Laws and regulations are subject to change at short notice and can be affected and implemented much quicker than you expect. And also, sometimes those regulations can vary in the same country between, for example, Dubai and Abu Dhabi. I'll give an example, not in food, but if you have a business in Dubai, you can do business in Dubai, but you can't do business with the government in Abu Dhabi. While you need to have a business in Abu Dhabi to do business there. So look at those regulations. Unfortunately, there's no one rules for the entire region and the entire country. Even if those rules are written on documents, please don't rely on them. You need to talk to your importer, your buyer, understanding those rules. Understand the requirements. And I'll give an example. Talk about halal. Not every product needs to be halal in the Middle East. Unlike Malaysia. Malaysia, maybe they require halal for the clothes, for maybe apple, for fruits, for milk. In the Middle East, you don't need to have to be halal to sell milk and fruits. Halal required is only for the animal additives or maybe goods that are coming originally from animals like meat, lamb, poultry. So working closely with your retailers, food importers and consolidators are highly recommended. If I want to take it and break it down quickly and say, okay, how to start? Visiting the market. Now, because most of our businesses are small to medium size, there's 2 ways to do business. Finding an importer or distributor, and then they supply the retailer food service. Or in Melbourne, Australia, we have about 3 or 4 food consolidators. They work in the Middle East. They have very good relationship, and maybe you can work with them. So that's maybe a much easier way to start doing business there. And this is really will minimize your risk and minimize your challenge entering the market. If you find an importer and then your distributor has to supply the retailers, then here you have to pay listing fees, shelf fees, marketing support, and so on. While if you work with a food consolidator, that will be in a small pallet consuming, and you don't pay listing fees and shelf fees because they work directly with the retailers. So that's why I would recommend to decide which distribution process that suits you. Make sure you understand listing fees, commercial clearance, customs, import, and also the hidden cost. Food, in most of the region, especially meat, dairy products, doesn't have any customs duty. But for example, you pay in the Gulf region now VAT, which is 5%, very small. The importer would pay this 5% VAT. But we are finding always that there is a hidden cost that you need to be aware of. In addition to the hidden cost, by the regulator, the distributors are asked to provide a percentage rebate on total annual turnover, contribute to promotional activities and campaigns. Some retailers, they work on listing fees, shelf fees. Others, like Carrefour in the UAE and Saudi, they work on rebate, and that could be between 10 to 35%. So personal contact is very important. Do not give up if you fail to get orders on the first visit. Respond promptly, even if they don't, as you know, as you are as a seller, you know, they oversupplied of products, promoted. I mean, they have companies and countries coming every day selling products everywhere, from everywhere. It's not only Australians. So you need to keep in touch with them and follow up. Exhibit at major trade fair, like Gulf Food. Gulf Food is the largest annual food show in the world. Attracts between 4,000 and 5,000 exhibitors. And that's usually in February. The Nontrade, MLA, and the Victorian government usually take delegation and also bring in delegation from different countries in that region to meet our exhibitors. So this would be I would recommend you be your first step. Agriculture, Saudi Arabia. Nowadays it's much easier to get visa in Saudi. That's another point to talk about it. A lot of Australians, because you have very good passport, you can travel everywhere without visa, but some countries require visa prior to visit, like Saudi Arabia. So the Saudi Arabia agriculture is in October every year. Agrami is agriculture technology, livestock technology, is usually in Dubai in March, and I would recommend it for companies in agri-tech. Understand logistics, as we mentioned, and labeling requirement is really essential. Even if you are at the early step of developing your products, maybe it's better to start to think about a market from now, because it requires Arabic and English label, manufacturing expiry date, best before is not acceptable in the Middle East. So maybe you have to be aware of this before you start maybe doing your label. Now, if you work with a food consolidator, they would help you to put this as stickers, because in most of these countries it's acceptable to have an Arabic where you mention your company, the ingredients, the origin of the products, and the manufacturing expiry date. Be wary of agency agreements. Anyone who goes to Gulf Food, for example, and meeting potential buyers, they were more than happy to sign immediately an agreement with you. They will be your importer. Don't do that. Signing exclusive agency agreement, we say it's like Catholic marriage. You can't pull out. So it's better to. There's another way to do it. Sorry. Another option to do it is to say what we say is commercial agreement for a certain period, and that's highly recommended to do for 12, 18 months, and then you can renew this agreement instead of signing exclusive agency agreement. Cash flow in that part of the world for many companies is an issue, and you might affect your payment. Most of them they will ask for a credit line. Be aware of this one. It's better to work on LC or maybe down payment before you send the goods, and also get paid in advance. Unless it's a well-established company, and if you come back to us and say, well, look, I've been asked by this XYZ, and I would like to sell my products to them, what do you think? Look, we don't take the risk and we say yes and no, but we will give our best advice. And because some of them, they request 30, 60 days, but the thing is, there is delay in payment. That's the nature of the business there. They always like to pay, if it's 60 days, after 90, and in non-food it goes up to 90 days, 180 days, or even for 12 months. So be careful when you sign any deal with anyone, and maybe would be highly recommended to talk to Nontrade, Global Victoria, or any other state officers about the client. Marketing support. A lot of companies, they're selling products, but unfortunately they are not supporting their brands. And they are facing failure later on, which is, unfortunately, it's common among many companies. If you don't provide marketing support to your products, it's really hard to move on. And I'm going to give you really examples I've heard it from local suppliers. Because of most of the most of the people working in the private sector are expats, and those people a lot of them are laborers, unskilled laborers, coming from different regions and countries. They have been appointed to be a merchandiser or driver, or could be just someone who's packing the products, and they make mistakes, lack of training. And that will affect you. If you don't have the merchandiser, or your import doesn't have a merchandiser in the retailer, you don't expect that the retailer will move your products. Each company, each brand has a merchandiser going every day to the shop to make sure the product's on the shelf and on display. Otherwise, it might pass 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, and the product is not there. And I'm going to give an example. Spinneys, it's one of the A-class supermarkets in the UAE. They have 65 stores, and this is where one of the potential clients for you requires that the goods come in one day at a certain time and have food and non-food separate in different cars, and has to be on a certain time and certain days. A lot of the drivers, they haven't been focusing on the requirement. They arrive with their goods on maybe 1 hour later, or maybe on another day, they send it on another day, and then they will be rejected. So when you reject the goods, you cannot supply the goods again in the next day. It has to be the following week. So what's happening is you have a gap, and you haven't sold the products for 1 week. The retailer doesn't care, because the retailers already have took the money from you, from the listing fees, shelf fees, took it from your importer. So you need to work with your importer to make sure that your goods are arriving on time. You make sure that your goods are on display, because most of these companies, they have 600,000 of SKUs. They work with multinational companies. And the salesman who's going out to sell your products, or the importer, or the distributor, he doesn't care what products he's selling. He has a task to sell $1 million. If he can make $1 million from Coca-Cola or from Nestle products, he will be happy. Connect with relevant Commonwealth, state, or industry association is highly recommended, especially if you are looking for in-market intelligence. Risk analysis, seek legal advice. I know it comes at a cost, but if you are signing a big deal, please seek an advice. Do your homework and modify your structure to fit local business culture, and get the relevance certification before you send a product. In this slide, just I wanted to highlight a couple of the brands that has been successful doing business there. There's more of this one. There's hundreds of them from Victoria. One of the supermarkets, as I mentioned, Spinneys, has 600 Victorian brands out of the 800 Australian brands. So we are selling hummus to the region that makes the hummus, by the way. So if you would like to talk to those companies, if they are existing here, please, that's my recommendation. I think they're more than happy to share with you some of their insights about the region and how to do business. And they've been successful. I hope you will go away today with some ideas, thoughts. I'm more than happy to share with you any advice in the future. Please, my contacts are available online, and you can communicate with us anytime. Thank you very much for listening.
All right. Thank you very much, Kassam. It was really insightful. I think it's a region that still has a lot of opportunity. And I'd probably just echo your sentiments at the end of how doing market research, going to the market, and you do have a lot of help through the Victorian government as well as through Austrade, and I encourage you to use those resources before you do go to market. One question, a few that have come through the app. First one was around things around free from, a lot of packaging around products being free from this, or high in protein, high in fibre. Are you seeing some of these trends coming through in the packaged food as well? I know you said it was a more traditional market, but are some of the emerging trends coming as well?
Yes, correct, Chris. As I mentioned earlier, that the region is going to expect a high growth of the organic and wellness products, including high fibre, nutrition, and definitely, and in the Gulf region, if we talk about Gulf region, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, definitely there's a market for it. And why is that? Because a lot of these middle class people are traveling now. They're seeing the products on the shelf in other markets, and that's where they consider that to have them in the market.
Terrific. So we do have 2 roving mics. Are there any questions from the floor? Yes, just one at the front here. Yep. Good to see you again, Mo.
Nice to meet you. Qasim, thank you for the intro about the region. It was amazing to learn more and more about it. I do have personal information about it. My question is what's the importance of localization of the content of the brand itself or their marketing to enter that region? Like, is it as essential to enter with localized content and marketing or brand, or is it better to enter as with the same message that they have it here to sell for Australian market?
Fortunate and unfortunate, the market doesn't have one guidelines for the entire region. So each market, each country, each city has a different requirements. And that's what I would recommend, to work with your local importer or distributor and to understand the requirements and what's your segment targeting in that market. So your products might be very for the Europeans or middle class Europeans and Australians living in that part of the world where they require certain marketing or label. But in terms of regulatory, you have to follow the regulations of imports of products. But the marketing message for different people, different population, different demographic is different. So if you go to Saudi Arabia, it's more Arabic language. If you go to the UAE, it's widely spoken English. Now you speak in different 200 languages, different accent, different dialect, that's a different story, but it's widely spoken English. If you go to Egypt, definitely it's going to be different messaging. Using social media, I would highly recommend it. I haven't seen any Australian company using social media. Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, Snapchat, and doesn't cost much.
Yeah. Almost amazing to hear Aussie companies aren't using social media. We love it. We love Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everything. So it's amazing to hear they're not using it.
Not only for communicating with friends.
Yes.
Use it for business.
Yes, exactly right. Any other questions from the floor? Just one at the back. If you could just introduce your name and business as well, that might help Kassam with his answers. Thank you.
Hi, Hassam. My name is Fuad. I'm from Hatch Quarter. We are a startup incubator here based in Melbourne. And I would like to know what are some of the avenues for collaboration between the startup sectors in Australia and the Middle East? Like, what are some of the
Sorry, you didn't hear the question to start.
what are some of the opportunities we could take advantage of between the startup sectors for the Middle East and Australia? What are like avenues of collaboration?
Look, this is a bit challenge because the region is more ready to work with the companies ready for export, ready for that market. It's a bit hard and challenging to have startup businesses where they're looking for investors or maybe to partnering with that market. But where I can see the partnership, we talk about Egypt, 2.5 million new babies every year. Of course, the baby formula is dominated by the big companies like Nestle, like the other brands. Why don't we, if we have new products, new packaging, maybe partnering with a local company, setting up a factory there under license? And I haven't seen any Australian companies maybe under licensing, manufacturing in that part of the world. Maybe that's the way maybe to enter the market. So that's kind of partnership I would maybe, take in an open mind. If you can't access the market because of the price sensitivity, or maybe because of your competitor is too big in that market, why don't you think about, manufacturing that market?
There's a question that came through the app around a perception that maybe being female in the market is a disadvantage or can be a hindrance to doing business. Can you share some insight as to your experience with that?
There's no issue as a female to do business in that part of the world. If you talk about UAE, is business as usual as in Australia. You talk about Qatar, Kuwait, same. But maybe you'll find, you have to just understand a bit of some of the culture. For example, if you go to the Kuwait, it's a dry country. You can't drink alcohol. I'm not saying this is particular female, but I'm just saying to understand the market. Go to Saudi as a female now. It's much easier to travel to Saudi than before. Maybe that was one of the countries that bit challenging to travel. But at the moment, the market is opening for female. We're seeing now Saudi female can travel without any, family members. So if you ask me, there's no issue for any female to travel to that part of the world. And extremely safe. Extremely safe. You can walk in Dubai and UAE at any time of the day or night and safe. You can leave your mobile here, go for an hour, 2 hours, and come back. The mobile will stay in the McDonald's. Nobody will touch it. Now, there's a reason behind it. There's cameras everywhere. Everyone's under control, but it's safe.
Well, no one's going to leave their phone for 2 hours. They've got to update their Instagram and Snapchat and whatever else. So, but it's good to know how safe it is. Any other final questions from the floor before we thank Kassam? I recognise that I'm also standing in between you and eating, so I don't want to hold you up too much. All right, well, Kassam, brilliant presentation. Thank you so much. It's a region that I think Australian businesses should still be seriously looking at.